There are moments in life where everything you thought you knew begins to collapse. Not just your relationships or your job or your plans, but your very sense of self. It's not a mental breakdown. It's not just depression. It goes deeper than that. It's a collapse of the illusion you've been living in. And if you're experiencing this, you may be in the middle of a dark spiritual awakening. This is not a poetic metaphor. It's a deeply disorienting, often terrifying spiritual process where the light doesn't arrive in the form of serenity, but in the form of destruction. It's the soul's raw and primal scream for truth. And when it begins, it feels like the universe has turned its back on you. But in reality, it's watching you more closely than ever. The darkness is not a punishment, it is a passage. In this space, everything loses meaning. You wake up and question why you're alive. Your old dreams feel like lies. Your beliefs feel hollow. You might have once lived with purpose, prayed with faith, meditated with peace. But now, everything feels like dust. You begin to feel like you're unraveling. And that's because you are. The ego, that carefully constructed identity you've carried your whole life, begins to crack. You start to see that so much of who you thought you were was built on fear, approval, ambition, and trauma. And when those layers begin to fall away, what's left? For a while, it feels like nothing, just emptiness. But that emptiness is sacred. It is not a void to be feared, it is the silence before the rebirth. It is what the mystics called the desert, the night, or the cave. And no one escapes it on the path to real awakening. This kind of awakening is not what the modern spiritual world often promotes. It's not about crystals, affirmations, or manifesting your dream life. It's about being stripped of everything that isn't true. It's about being forced to face the parts of yourself you've buried, hated, or ignored. The shadow, the trauma, the rage, the despair, all of it rises to the surface, not to torment you, but to be seen, held, and integrated. And this is why it hurts. Because we've spent our entire lives building barriers against our own pain. But in this stage, the soul begins to dismantle those walls. And it doesn't ask for your permission. It just begins. And you, helpless, confused, but somehow still breathing, you're left with nothing but the truth. And the truth, when it first arrives, doesn't always feel like light. Sometimes it feels like fire. So how do you know you're in a dark spiritual awakening? You'll know because nothing external seems to fix what's happening inside. You'll know because your spirit feels like it's been unplugged from its source. You'll know because no one around you seems to understand and you begin to question your sanity. But you're not crazy. You're waking up, slowly, painfully, but deeply. And if you resist it, it will drag you. But if you surrender to it, even if you scream, even if you cry, it will break you open in the most holy way. The pain is not there to destroy you. It is there to remove everything that is not you. And what remains, if you stay with it, is something eternal. Something eternal. Something that cannot be taken from you again. Now I ask you to sit with this question. What if your greatest pain is the doorway to your greatest truth? What if this darkness you're in is not an end, but a beginning? Could you find the courage to stop running from it and instead walk straight into it with eyes wide open? That's what this awakening is asking of you. To see the darkness not as the enemy of light, but as its womb. Stay with that. Let it stir something ancient in you. Because the dark night is not your death, it is your preparation. And what waits on the other side is not just peace, it is power. The kind of power that comes from knowing who you truly are, once everything else has been burned away. When the dark spiritual awakening deepens, something unexpected begins to happen. You start encountering aspects of yourself you didn't even know existed. Not the idealized self, not the one you proudly show the world, but the hidden self, the shadow. This is where the journey intensifies, because the shadow isn't just a collection of bad habits or negative emotions. It's the buried, exiled parts of you that were deemed unacceptable by your family, by society, by your own internal judge. The shadow is the anger you never expressed, the grief you never mourned, the desires you silenced, the fears you were too ashamed to admit. And during a dark awakening, it all comes up. Not to punish you, but because your soul is demanding wholeness. And wholeness requires you to make peace not just with light, but with darkness too. You may experience this in dreams, in sudden memories, in overwhelming emotions that come out of nowhere. You might find yourself reacting more strongly than usual, or feeling emotionally raw for no clear reason. This is the shadow rising. And it's not a sign that you're regressing. It's actually a sign that you're getting closer to truth. But this process requires brutal honesty. You can't bypass it. You can't positive think your way out of it. You have to face it. And when you do, when you look into the eyes of your own shadow, you'll see something strange. You'll see you. Not the version of you that everyone approves of, but the original, unfiltered being you were before the conditioning began. And that being is not evil. That being is wounded. That being is sacred. And it's been waiting to be seen your entire life. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It reflects everything you've rejected, and in doing so gives you the opportunity to become whole again. But this is incredibly difficult, because it means taking responsibility for your own inner world. It means realizing that the darkness you see in others is often a mirror of what you haven't healed in yourself. It means owning your trauma, your mistakes, your patterns, and choosing to love yourself anyway. That's the real test. Can you love yourself not just when you're successful, spiritual, and wise, but also when you're broken, confused, and afraid? Can you love the part of you that lashes out, that hides, that feels unworthy? Because that's what the awakening is truly asking. Can you love the parts of yourself no one else could? This is where the transformation begins. Because once you stop running from the shadow, it begins to soften. It stops screaming and starts whispering. It reveals its origins, childhood wounds, ancestral pain, collective fear. You start to see that your darkness isn't personal, it's part of the human experience. And in that realization, a kind of grace enters. You begin to feel compassion not just for yourself, but for everyone. Because once you've sat with your own suffering, you understand the suffering of others. You stop judging so quickly. You start listening more. You begin to walk through the world with a quieter, more grounded presence. And ironically, it's in that humility that your light begins to return. But now it's different. It's not the blinding light of ego or performance. It's a steady inner glow, the light of truth. Let me ask you something deeply and honestly. What part of yourself have you been most afraid to face? Is it your rage, your shame, your loneliness? What if that part of you isn't here to ruin your life, but to teach you something your soul came here to learn? What if, by turning toward it instead of away from it, you could unlock a strength, a wisdom, and a peace you've never known before? That's what this dark awakening is offering you. Not escape, but integration. Not perfection, but presence. And the more you lean into it, the more you realize the shadow isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your becoming. After the long silence, the inner storms, the unraveling of everything you thought you were, something begins to shift. It's not dramatic. it doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it's as subtle as a morning where you wake up and realize for the first time in what feels like ages, you're not drowning. There's a stillness, not because everything is fixed, but because something inside you has stopped resisting. That's when the light starts to return. But it's not the same light you used to chase. It's quieter, wiser. It doesn't come from outside of you. It rises from within, from the ashes of everything that had to die. This is the moment when you begin to reclaim your soul's fire, not the fire of ambition or ego, but the sacred, eternal flame of authentic being. You begin to see that everything you lost in the darkness was never truly yours. The roles, the masks, the false beliefs, they were borrowed costumes, worn so long you forgot they weren't your skin. And now, stripped bare, you begin to feel who you were always meant to be. There's a clarity that doesn't need explanation. It's a knowing that pulses through your bones. You make peace with not having all the answers. You find beauty in mystery. Your relationship with pain changes. It's no longer something to fear, but something to listen to. And above all, your relationship with yourself becomes sacred. You've walked through the underworld of your own soul, and you didn't run. You stayed. You faced the fire. And now you carry a kind of strength that no one can give you and no one can take away. This is the true reward of the dark spiritual awakening. Not fame, not power, not even happiness in the way you once defined it. The reward is truth. The reward is peace. The reward is a life that no longer needs to be performed because it's lived from a place so deep, so real, that even silence feels full. You begin to see the divine in places you never expected. In grief, in solitude, in ordinary moments. You no longer chase enlightenment as a destination. You realize it was never about escaping life, but embodying it. Fully, fiercely, tenderly. You become someone who can hold both joy and sorrow in the same breath. Someone who doesn't need to be saved, because you've already met the part of you that was the savior, buried beneath all the noise. And now you start to serve, not because you're trying to be good, but because your soul overflows. You listen differently. You forgive more easily. You see through the eyes of compassion because you remember what it's like to suffer in silence. Your presence becomes healing, not because you try to heal others, but because you've healed yourself in ways no one else could. You carry your scars like sacred tattoos. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You shine not like a spotlight, but like a lighthouse, quiet and unwavering. And most importantly, you no longer fear the dark, because you know it. You've made peace with it. And maybe, just maybe, you're even grateful for it, because without it, you would never have awakened. So I leave you with one final question, and I ask you to let it live in your heart like a seed underground. If all your pain was preparing you to remember who you truly are, was any of it in vain? Think about that. Feel it. Because your journey isn't about becoming something new, it's about reclaiming what was always inside you. And now that you've walked through the fire, through the silence, through the shadow, you are ready. Not to escape the world, but to enter it fully, soul first. And that changes everything. Even though we've reached the end of this journey in words, the real journey, the one inside you, never truly ends. A dark spiritual awakening doesn't come with a clean conclusion or a final certificate of enlightenment. It's not a movie where the credits roll and you walk off into the light. No. It's more like a spiral. You move forward, then circle back. You revisit old wounds with new eyes. You encounter deeper layers of truth just when you thought you were done. And that's not regression, that's evolution. The soul doesn't grow in straight lines. It grows in cycles, seasons, spirals. And the more you surrender to this rhythm, the less you resist life when it surprises you. Because it will, again and again. But now you're not afraid of the dark. You've made a home there. Integration is the next chapter. It's where the real work begins. It's where you take everything you've seen, your shadow, your pain, your divine spark, and begin weaving it into how you live, how you speak, how you show up in relationships, how you treat your body, your time, your future. You begin to realize that spirituality isn't about escaping this world. It's about honoring it. It's about making your life a ceremony. Washing the dishes becomes a meditation. Holding someone's hand becomes a prayer. Crying becomes a sacred release. You stop waiting for some perfect version of yourself to begin. You realize you've already begun. You are already enough. And everything you've experienced, every loss, every breakdown, every night you thought you wouldn't survive, has shaped you into someone who now carries wisdom in their bones. But here's the most humbling part. You're not the only one. There are countless others walking through their darkness right now, just like you once did. And now, you have a choice. You can turn away, or you can become the light for someone else, not by preaching, but by being. Just your presence, your story, your honesty can be the lifeline someone else needs. Because you've been through the fire, you can walk with others through theirs. This is how the awakened serve, not by rescuing, but by reminding others of their own light. And there is no greater gift you can offer this world than to become someone who sees with the eyes of the soul. Someone who no longer needs to judge, because they understand. Someone who no longer needs to control, because they trust. And yes, the darkness may revisit you. You might stumble again. You might forget, doubt, rage. That's okay. That's human. Don't make your awakening another spiritual performance. Let it be real. Let it be messy. Let it breathe. The path of the soul is not about perfection. It's about sincerity. It's about staying open, even when it hurts. It's about showing up, even when you're tired. It's about loving, even when you're afraid. That's what makes it sacred. That's what makes you sacred. Not your achievements, not your image, but your willingness to keep your heart open in a world that often tells you to shut it down. That's true power. And that's the kind of light that nothing, not even the deepest dark, can overshadow. So wherever you are now, whether you're just beginning deep in the fire or emerging on the other side, know this: you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are becoming. And the fact that you are still here, still breathing, still seeking truth, it means your soul is stronger than you know. Let that be your reminder. Let that be your anchor. And if you ever forget, come back to this message. Come back to your breath. Come back to the silence. Because even in the silence, your soul is singing. And it's singing the oldest truth there is. You are light. You are shadow. You are sacred. You are home. And now that you've walked through the darkness and touched the essence of your soul, a quiet revolution begins to unfold inside you. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't announce itself. It blossoms in the small choices you make every day. Slowly, you start to live from a deeper place. Not the reactive mind, not the wounded ego, but the soul that has seen both death and rebirth. You start to trust your intuition more. You begin to listen, not just to others, but to the whispers within. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth, because you've already discovered it in the silence where you thought you were abandoned. That's the paradox. The place that once felt like death became the birthplace of your true life. And now, every step you take is rooted in something real, something unshakable. You no longer view healing as a destination. You understand that healing is a relationship with yourself, your past, your humanity. You begin to welcome your difficult emotions instead of fearing them. Grief becomes a sacred guest. Anger becomes a teacher. Fear becomes a compass. You stop labeling parts of yourself as good or bad, light or dark. You begin to see that everything within you has a purpose. That even your most painful moments were not punishment but preparation. They carved out space within you for more depth, more love, more presence. And it's this presence that becomes your power. Not the kind of power that dominates, but the kind that gently transforms everything it touches. The kind that holds space for others to heal simply by being near you. And something else happens, you begin to feel connected again. Not in the superficial way we often experience in the digital world, but in a profound soul-level way. You feel connected to the earth, to the sky, to the people walking past you on the street. You see the sacred in a stranger's eyes, in the wind brushing your skin, in the silence between your thoughts. You realize that the separation you once felt was never real. It was a veil created by pain and fear. But now that you've walked through the fire, the veil is thin. You don't need to chase mystical experiences anymore. Just breathing is a miracle. Just being here is enough. And this realization doesn't make you passive. It humbles you. It softens you. It roots you in the present moment like a great tree that has survived many storms. And because of this deepening, your relationship with others begins to change. You no longer seek people to complete you. You seek people to share your completeness with. You stop needing to be validated because you're already seen by the part of you that matters most, your soul. And from this place of wholeness, your connections become richer, more honest, more nourishing. You no longer fear being alone, and because of that, you're never really lonely. You've befriended your solitude. You've turned your silence into sanctuary, and that changes how you love. You love without attachment. You give without expectation. You hold space without trying to fix. You become a mirror for others, not showing them who you want them to be, but reflecting back the truth of who they are. There's a sacred responsibility that comes with this transformation. Once you've walked through your own shadows, you can't ignore the pain of the world. You begin to feel the collective wounds more deeply, the grief of humanity, the disconnection, the hunger for meaning. But instead of becoming overwhelmed, you become a quiet force of healing in the world. Not by saving anyone, but by living in a way that reminds others of what's possible. You become a walking prayer, a living altar, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You become the kind of presence that doesn't need to say much. Your energy speaks louder than your words. And when someone else is going through their dark night, they'll feel your presence like a lighthouse in a storm. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've sat in the silence and learned how to listen. So as you emerge from this deep inner journey, remember this: the goal was never to become enlightened in the way the world defines it. The goal was to remember yourself, to reclaim your soul from all the places you abandoned it, to walk back into the world, not as someone who has escaped pain, but as someone who has alchemized it into wisdom. You are not here to float above the world. You are here to embody the divine in human form, to be fully here, fully alive, fully you. And the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more whole people. People like you, who've walked through the dark, touched the infinite, and returned with light in their eyes and fire in their hearts. Let that be your offering. Let that be your legacy. Let that be your awakening.